what is going on, everyone? Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We've made it to the middle of the week. Don't know about you, but my week is going pretty good. Took a little bit of vacation over the weekend, so came back fresh, relaxed. It's been hard to get in the groove of things again, but I am back and better than ever, and excited to be back. Because there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on in the news right now, and it's kind of funny doing a political show. Sometimes people are kind of like, aren't you just tired of all this politics, everything that's been going on nowadays, just because it can seem like so much, and it can seem overwhelming to a lot of people. And to all those people out there, just keep in mind, the election's coming up soon. The way the last 3.5 with getting close to 4 years now have gone, it's been total chaos. So we always kind of knew that coming close to the election, it would be even more chaos. And that has definitely been proven to be true. It's a crazy time right now. And it can seem like, you would want to turn the TV off or disengage, stop paying attention to it. But honestly, that's exactly what some politicians want you to do. They want you to get tired of all the chaos that's going on now, because maybe that means you won't vote. Maybe that'll turn you off to the whole, to politics in general. And I say, don't let them do it. Right? Don't let them do it. Anyway, on this fine Wednesday, I'm enjoying a very nice whiskey on the rocks. It is after 5 o'clock, so that, that's okay. Well, the first story I wanted to talk about today is something that had seemed like a kind of a rumor, something like really, really far out there, and has slowly started to pick up steam, right? I mean, when I first heard this, I thought, okay, this is out of left field, right? This is, for even people who hate Trump or don't like Trump, this is a bit much, right? And that is the question of whether or not he is faking his COVID-19 diagnosis, whether or not Trump actually has the coronavirus. And it's one of those things. It can seem like a very a far out there kind of question, something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But if there's one thing that Trump has been very, very consistent at, it's that he's a liar. In fact, the Washington Post, their fact checkers have found that the president has made 20,000 false or misleading statements since he has taken office. 20,000. And in case you are, really good at math, you've probably already figured this out, but that averages out to about 23 lies a day. 23 lies a day. Honestly, I don't know how that, you got to be creative to lie that much. I don't know how anyone can actually lie 23 lies a day. That's a lot of lying. And, that's a big problem when we have something going on like the coronavirus. And there's also been studies that have looked at, where's all this bad information coming from about the coronavirus? Where is all this bad info coming out that people, where's all this misinformation coming from? And you guessed it, it is coming from none other than Trump himself. Right? Vox did a study, or they reported on a study, that found that President Trump has been the biggest source of COVID-19 misinformation, right? And also all the stuff on masks, the crazy stuff about hydroxychloroquine, all that stuff. They're finding that Trump is the biggest source of that misinformation. And so it kind of makes a lot of sense why people would question whether or not he actually has the virus. I mean, he's been saying all kinds of crazy stuff about it. And as a wise man once said, you can fool me once, but...
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Just can't get fooled again. And so my big question is, and I'll be honest, I was kind of on the outside of this. I did not think he was faking it. But my first question was, why lie? I mean, why would he be faking it? You're trying to understand, why would he actually do that? And I see a couple possibilities here. First, he wants to change the conversation around the coronavirus, right? He wants to, obviously this is something that's going to dominate the election. He knows that. I know that. You know that. And he's been for months, trying to put the coronavirus behind him. And so, him being positive, it gives him two options that I see. He could either be really sick, possibly life-threatening, and that would just kind of ruin everything that he's, fought for this whole time. If he's downplaying the virus, saying it's like the flu, all that kind of stuff. And actually, funny thing is, still saying it's just like the flu. Let me blow that up for a little bit bigger. Yeah, he tweeted the other day that, hey, he was kind of rage tweeting the other day, but yeah, he tweeted, if I can find it for you here. Yeah, he just tweeted, it's just like the flu. It is not that big of a deal. So again, downplaying the virus, because obviously it's been a big problem for him. Oop, that's gonna reload. I don't worry about that. But yeah, so he downplay the virus, say it's not that big of a deal, and then he could kind of change the conversation around it, right? He could review hydroxychloroquine, which of course I think he's been dying to do, and say, hey, this stuff actually really works. It worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. But the idea there is that he could, again, downplay the whole thing by saying, oh, I wasn't really that sick. I was totally fine. They've made a big deal about this whole thing. That's the other option. And that's the thing I was kind of worried about when he first got sick. Obviously, he's older. He's not the healthiest guy. He doesn't seem to do a whole lot of exercise. And yeah, those are not good factors for COVID-19. And so I kind of thought, looking at this, that all right, maybe Trump's going to have a hard problem fighting this. And, or he was going to have an easy time fighting this, and it was going to say, hey, much ado about nothing. And the other option that he possibly has here, reason for lying, I should say, is trying to delay the 2020 election. And a lot of folks have, he's been trying to do that for a long time, saying, hey, we should push the election back. People can't vote because of the pandemic. And this could just be adding to that, saying, hey, I have had coronavirus and I've had to quarantine. I can't do all the stuff. I can't be on the campaign trail. It's not fair. And so that's another option of why he could be lying. Theoretically, he would have to quarantine for 14 days. And even now, the White House is not saying exactly when he tested positive. So he said he tested positive on Friday. That's when he announced it. It was kind of like, or I should say, early Friday morning, Thursday night. But we don't know when he actually tested positive. And so theoretically, this could knock him out for most of the ramp up for the election. And so maybe if he was faking it, I don't know if he is, but he could use that as another push to, hey, delay the election. But Republicans and Democrats, in rare bipartisanship nowadays, have both signaled that they are unwilling to do that they're not going to move the election. So, to be honest here, those are all the reasons why he would lie. But to be honest, I don't think he is. I really don't think he's lying about this. First of all, it would take way too much coordination. And if there's one thing the Trump administration has proved over the last 4 years, they're not very good about that. Right? Also, you would need a lot of people to keep it quiet, right? And one thing we've gotten from the Russia investigation is that they're not good at that either, right? They're not good at keeping people quiet and in keeping people from, saying the truth, right? They're not very good about that. So the idea that all of a sudden he's going to get sick and go to the hospital and all this stuff, that would take a very big level of coordination on the Trump administration's part, and I just don't think they could pull that off, which is kind of a sad thing to say. And so Trump has already home now. He's back at the White House, and this is another reason why I think he is actually, telling the truth on this one, because he told everyone, hey, he's telling the truth on whether or not he is sick. What I think he's lying about is how he feels now. Take a look at this video. This is him after he got off Marine One and he got back to the White House. And the video is lagging a little bit here, but as you can kind of see, he is gasping for air. He is having a hard time breathing. Let's see if I can blow this up for you a little bit. And so the thing about this is, you know, he just walked up a flight of stairs, and it's kind of reasonable to think that someone who just, fought this coronavirus that can definitely affect your lungs would be having a hard time breathing after going up a flight of stairs. I mean, he just got out of the hospital, but it shows you that he is still sick, right? If he was faking it this whole time, why the huff and puff when he walks up the stairs? I mean, I know he's out of shape, but is he that out of shape? I don't know. And so it just seems pretty plausible. One thing about this video, I hope you can hear this, is that, first, the music behind this video is just that's just wrong. I first pulled up this video and I thought, I was like, that's just wrong there. So, is he faking it? Oh, well, this video also proves two things. It proves that he's probably sick, and it also proves that he's an asshole because he's walking to the White House without a mask on, infecting possibly the 90 full-time workers who are actually there, which is just a shitty kind of thing to do. But yeah, I mean, he looks sick. You know, I mean, you just kind of do like an eye test there. He looks sick. And whether or not this is a political stunt, you know, I think Trump was actually sick. And he, of course, hey, don't miss an opportunity to make it a political stunt.
Don't let it dominate. Don't let it take over your lives. Don't let that happen.
Don't let it dominate your lives. And that's been very offensive to people who have had the coronavirus. And I was trying to think of the right words to put just how offensive that is. And I couldn't figure it out. But someone else put it in the perfect words for me.
I just left Walter Reed Medical Center, and it's really something very special. The doctors, the nurses, the first responders, and I learned so much about coronavirus. And one thing that's for certain, don't let it dominate you.
Not everyone's lucky enough to walk out of the hospital after 2 days, you know? So we saw what this disease can do. So guess what? We are afraid. We are. I still am.
I didn't feel so good. And 2 days ago, I could have left 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I felt great, like better than I have in a long time. I said just recently, better than 20 years ago.
Why are you bragging? Have empathy to the Americans that you are our leader. Have some empathy to the people who are suffering and grieving.
Don't let it dominate. Don't let it take over your lives. Don't let that happen. We have the greatest country in the world. We're going back to work.
Let it dominate your life? No one's letting it. Nick didn't let.
Sorry, it's lagging there a little bit. But yes, don't let it dominate your lives. That is the voice of Amanda Coots, who is the widow of a Broadway actor who passed away a couple months ago after fighting COVID-19 for months and months. And so she has no choice on whether or not it is going to dominate her life, right? I mean, her and her now infant son, they've lost a husband, lost a father. And so, I mean, this just kind of shows how, you know, if Trump was faking it, he's just doing a horrible job of making this work for him. So what I think this is a more of a sign is that, look, Trump didn't take this virus seriously, and it is biting him at the worst time possible. So another question I've kind of had with all this, you know, Trump first, you know, it was a bombshell announcement when Trump announced that he was positive with COVID-19. And it was shocking to everyone when it really shouldn't have been. I mean, he's been downplaying, he's been messing with this virus for months and months now, and so it shouldn't have been shocking when he was actually sick. But one of the things that, people were kind of wondering, because, he was sick and now he was positive, and so you assumed he was going to, quarantine at the White House for a little bit. Then all of a sudden, okay, he's going to the hospital. And you think, okay, maybe it's just a precautionary measure. And then you hear he needs oxygen, he's not doing so good. And so that made me wonder about this big question here is, how long has he actually been sick? This kind of highlights one of the biggest problems with COVID-19 is that you really don't know until you're sick until it's kind of too late, right? So essentially with the incubation period here, right? Let me pull up this article here that should better explain this. Hold on one sec. And it definitely kind of points out just how long and how many days the incubation period is. All right, so this comes to us. A little laggy here. This comes to us from CBC, and it's an article to try to figure out what's the progression of COVID-19? What's the average progression of COVID-19? As you see, there's an incubation period here. And the incubation period varies quite a bit. I mean, it could be 2 weeks. It could be 5 days. It could be 2 days. It's kind of up in the air there. But I think the average consensus is that it could be up to around 5 days. Right? And so then after you are, once the incubation is passed and you officially do have COVID-19, then you're going to start to see symptoms after that. And those symptoms are going to progress over 5 days. And within those 5 days, they'll either get better or they will get worse. And so theoretically, Trump could have been infected around 10 days ago. Theoretically. I mean, I am not a doctor, and they've been very, very guarded on this subject, and they're refusing to announce, okay, when did Trump first test positive? And so that the fact that they are not being forthcoming with that information shows you maybe there's something to hide. But what we do know is that Trump was hospitalized on Friday, right? In the last 10 days before that, he went to a private fundraiser on Wednesday, because you got to make money, running for president, got to make that money. He did the debate on Tuesday, of course, being with Joe Biden, and everyone else who was there, who was some of the top members of our government and top members of the campaign, Biden's campaign. And for the record, it seems like a lot of folks on the Republican side are tested positive, not as much on the Democratic side testing positive, but there's a lot of positives that are coming out of the actual debate there, people who were actually at the debate. Also, on Monday, he met with a Gold Star Mothers group, which is very nice of him to do, but he also met with generals and military leadership. And a lot of those generals and military leadership, including, I believe, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, the leader of the Coast Guard, a few members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, are all now quarantined, some of them testing positive. And so no matter how you feel about this, now COVID-19 is a national security risk. We are having, some of the top members of our military have testing positive or quarantined. We have now entered the stage where this is threatening the security of the United States. And on Saturday, Trump did this.
I stand before you today to fulfill one of my highest and most important duties under the United States Constitution, the nomination of a Supreme Court Justice.
As you can see, there is a lot of people there. And I've seen some graphics where you could literally point to the people. You say, look, okay, that person's positive, that person's positive, that person's positive. I mean, you've had senators coming out of there testing positive. You've had, Melania obviously testing positive. You have all kinds of staffers testing positive out of there. And you could just kind of see, look who they're all sitting next to, right? There's a lot of people who are positive that were at that event. And you can kind of see why. I mean, you look back at that video, and I don't think I saw a mask at all. And I've seen a lot of people call out Amy Coney Barrett, who had the virus months ago, having all her kids, they're sitting next in, this big rally environment without a mask on. It might seem like a little bit of a below the belt attack, but it just kind of shows that there wasn't a whole lot of virus prevention kind of stuff at that event, and it's kind of biting them in the ass right now. And so if we go back to our timeline, go back to our COVID timeline. If Trump needed oxygen on Friday, then on Saturday, he likely noticed symptoms, either Saturday or Monday. And then over the next 5 days, he didn't say anything about it. And that's not me saying anything. I mean, this is the science here, right? This is the progression of COVID-19 from what the average person is going through, right? So this is just science. It's hard to argue. It's hard to argue with the science there. And so what we can't see is that a lot of times science follows a pattern. And Trump's typical pattern with the virus is there's rules for everyone else, but not for me. Not for me. And that has been central to how we've been fighting COVID-19. Do you remember back when the lockdowns happened? Do you remember back when there were people who were doing these reopen protests throughout the country? And the Trump administration put out all these fun guidelines. The Trump administration put all these guidelines saying, here's what you need to reopen, here's what you need to be safe, here's what you need to do, here's all the right things that you need to do. And then they went and ignored all of it after Trump tweeted, retaliate. He tweeted, reopen. He tweeted, hey, forget all these rules. You need to rise up against these Democratic-run, governors or Democratic-run mayors. Because, look, this has all been political to him. All been political to him. Doesn't matter. Rules for you, not rules for me. He says, hey, we all need to wear masks. I'm probably not going to wear one. You should wear one. Hey, this is just how he operates. This is just how he is. And you can just see him walking home in the White House after spending 3 days in the hospital without a mask on. I mean, you got to have your head really far up your ass to do that, right? Like, look, I get if he's feeling better. I get the White House is his home. And I get that it's, he's putting a lot of people at risk by being there. But I get it. He lives at the White House. But come on. If you had the coronavirus and you went to the hospital and you went home and there were people you actually cared about in your home, would you walk inside without a mask? I mean, that's not a gotcha question. That's not something that's like, oh, this is something that should be, this shouldn't be political here, right? If you are sick with a contagious virus and you're just getting out of the hospital where you needed oxygen, so you're real sick, probably very contagious, would you walk inside your house with people that you say that you love without a mask on? You don't have to be a genius to figure out that that's a really stupid idea. And this brings me to my next story here. Another thing I wanted to talk about, and this is something that is probably an obvious fact to everyone that's been paying attention to politics over the last couple months. And that is that Republicans played with the virus and the virus won. Let me ask you a question. How do you feel about masks, right? How do you feel about wearing masks? Do you wear them at work? Do you wear them to the office? Do you wear them to the grocery store, out and about? I'll be honest. Masks aren't a whole lot of fun. But could you actually imagine being berated at work for not wearing one by your own boss? That is what has reportedly happened to a bunch of congressional senators congressional aides that were working for Republican Louis Gohmert, right? And so after he tested positive, it came out that a lot of his staffers wanted to wear masks. They wanted to do stuff, but they were berated for doing so in his office. They were discouraged. And Louis specifically was quoted as saying, let's set an example for the American people by not wearing masks, which is not setting an example out of all. And he tested positive. And that was months ago. And Republicans have been refusing to take the coronavirus seriously, and it is hurting them at the worst possible time, as the president, the leader, the person who embodies the Republican Party, Donald Trump, is now positive with COVID-19. And so what does this actually mean for Trump? I mean, theoretically, he is sidelined for the next couple of weeks, right? Now, of course, he says he's feeling better. He hasn't announced that he's testing negative yet, so we'll see. But theoretically, he should be quarantining for 2 weeks. And that likely sidelines him for the next couple of weeks with the debate, or with the election coming up, and I believe 28, 27 days now. And so that means no more debates. I mean, Joe Biden has said, I'm not debating you unless you can show that you don't have the coronavirus. And so theoretically, that eliminates at least the next debate. I'm not sure where the last debate after that is supposed to be, but theoretically that means no more debates. Not that I'm sure that most of the American people would not mind that, but that's a whole other topic. Also, probably no more rallies, right? I mean, theoretically he could probably do it, but man, you really have to. I mean, it's one thing to have people around without masks on and have a rally and all this stuff, right? But when the guy who is literally talking at the rally has the coronavirus, I mean, who's going to sign off on that, right? I mean, Trump is the president of the United States, but he needs some kind of local coordination to actually have some of these mass rallies. And so, who's going to sign off on that, right? And the funny part about this, if you watched that debate the other day, you know, Trump criticized Biden for wearing the biggest mask he's ever seen, you know? He's like, have you seen Joe's mask? Look at the size of that thing. And he's also criticized Biden for staying in the basement. He attacked him for not exposing himself to the coronavirus. And now it's Biden on the road with the election coming up soon, and Trump, who is stuck in the White House. And that's just a little bit of funny irony there for you, right? Biden took this virus seriously the whole time, was attacked for it, and when you look at who's getting sick now, in the last stretch before the election, it's a lot of folks on Trump's side, right? And a lot of key people he needs. Hope Hicks, she's positive. Kayleigh McEnany, she's positive. Stephen Miller is positive, which I know I should be upset about. I should feel, prayers for Stephen Miller, but I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan at all. But it just kind of shows you that, yes, when the virus could, bite them in the ass the most, it's probably right before Election Day. And Americans are reacting to this, right? Americans are not dumb. And a new poll on Fox News has Biden up 14 points on Trump following the chaotic debate. Now, to be honest with you, I like pulling up polls from Fox News, right? Because a lot of people on the other side, a lot of the Republicans will say, that's bull stuff there. That's a ABC poll. That's a NBC poll. That ain't real. That ain't real stuff there. Look at that Fox News. Fox News have real stuff. But you look at Fox News, and now Fox News is saying Biden is up by 14 points now. Kind of hard to argue with that. And of course, this could have all been very, very different. Imagine, if you will, for a second, if Trump took the virus seriously from the beginning, right? I've not been a huge Trump fan. I do not think he's a great president. I don't think he's a great leader. But I'll be honest. If he had taken this seriously from the beginning and said, hey, I know the Democrats have been against me. I know the media has been against me. I know there's been a lot of people who are not fans of mine, but this is life and death, and we need to come together for all the good of all Americans to fight this virus, to fight this pandemic, and to save as many people as possible. If that was the approach he had taken from the beginning, I would have supported him. Right? I don't like Trump. There's a lot of things I don't like Trump. But if he had made this the issue that it should have been, and used this to bring everyone together after years of fighting, I mean, that would have been huge. This is the biggest missed opportunity of his presidency. I don't know if you remember, or if you were around after 9/11, I know we all have a story about what happened on 9/11, our own personal experience there. But people always talk about 9/12, right? They always talk about just how united Americans were after that tragedy, after thousands of people died in a terrorist attack, right? And that brought the country together in ways that it maybe hasn't been in, ever, if not decades. I mean, I remember polling around with President Bush after 9/11. I think it was in like the 90s. And, I mean, people that really brought Americans together. And that was kind of one of the things that helped Bush stay in office in 2004. And Trump could have done that, but instead, he said shit like this.
Supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number on the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that.
Yes, inject into the lungs. Right? I mean, like, there's been two kind of things coming out of that. And it's funny, I know when Trump has said something stupid when my phone blows up overnight, and I get all these people saying, well, he didn't actually really say that. He didn't mean that. That was, he's just spitballing there. And I'm like, you know how that's worse, right? And even Trump has said, hey, I was joking. I was just joking about that. Don't actually inject yourself. I was just joking about all that stuff. And I'm like, you get how that's worse, right? I mean, if you just came out and said, hey, I said something stupid, okay, we all say dumb things. It might have even actually helped him politically. Hey, Trump's just a regular guy. He says dumb things like the rest of us, right? But instead, he said, oh, I was just joking. Well, I believe today there are 212,000 people dead from COVID-19. And those thousands of people have, they have a husband, they got a wife, they have kids, they have parents, they got grandparents, they have aunts, they have uncles, they have nieces, they have nephews. And the last thing that Americans want to see is a, commander-in-chief telling jokes at the White House. So even if he was just joking, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? And now, again, just weeks before the election, Trump looks like this. Again, that is him gasping for air. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like how his campaign is right now. And his campaign is gasping for air. Right? His campaign is on life support. Things aren't looking so good for him right now. And of course, like I mentioned before, a big chunk of the administration is testing positive for this. Theoretically, there's a couple of Republican senators who are testing positive, so it could cause some problems with Amy Coney Barrett's nomination. And so it caused a lot of problems for him. And if you needed another sign, if you thought maybe you had a glimmer of hope that, okay, Trump is positive for the coronavirus, this is really bad for them politically, this is causing a lot of problems, maybe now they're going to take this shit seriously. Well, take a look at this. This is an article about Mike Pence, I believe his communications director, or his team, saying they don't want a divider at tonight's debate, right? They're saying that, okay, we don't want a divider there. That's ridiculous. That's dumb. Keep in mind that Trump was potentially positive at the last debate. And if he wasn't positive, several members of his administration were. And so, the Biden campaign is definitely taking this seriously. They say, okay, we want a divider. And Mike Pence, instead of saying, okay, yeah, let's have a divider, let's take this shit seriously, is criticizing them. I believe his communications director said, okay, if Camilla wants a fortress around her, she can have a fortress around her. I mean, come on. Does that really sound like you're taking this seriously? For real? And it was also announced yesterday, before it was taken back, that Trump said there will no longer be any more COVID-19 negotiations for a stimulus until after he is re-elected president. Remember, he said he is re-elected president. Well, so what he's basically saying is that if you're a small business owner, you're on unemployment because your work has been shut down or you haven't been able to find another job, if you're a hospital worker, if you're a frontline worker and you're trying to get more PPE, if you're somewhere at a local government and you need help because you're about to go bankrupt, Trump is saying all that shit can wait until after the election, because that's what's serious to him. That's the important thing to him, is the election. But if you were taking the coronavirus seriously, why would you do that? And it just shows that Republicans are determined to just put this all behind them and just stop worrying about it. They don't care about us. They just care about politics. And for right now, they just don't want to take this seriously. They want to leave the rest of us to suffer. And that is pretty damn sad. So there's another story on the other side of the aisle. Keep in mind here, I envision Citizen Pete as a unbiased show, right? This is a setup to not just attack Republicans or just attack Democrats. This is set up to look at both sides of the aisle and see what's actually going on in politics and try to, cut through all the bullshit, right? And so while Trump's positive test for COVID-19 was obviously dominating headlines, one thing that you might have missed, one bombshell, came from North Carolina. And that was when the Democratic challenger for the Senate seat in North Carolina announced, just hours after Republican Senator Tom Tillis, the incumbent, announced that he had COVID-19, Cal Cunningham announced that he had sent some sexually suggestive messages to a woman who was not his wife. Come on, man. This is just like, you could not have picked a worse time to do some dumb stuff. And I'm going to pull up the text messages for you right here, see if I can zoom in on this, show you what they said. There is a lot of stuff like, would make my get the other side there. Would make my day to roll over and kiss you now. There's also liking it's like a kiss back, and saying that this other woman is historically sexy. There's another thing where he's talking about wanting to spend a night with her. Right? I mean, this is just incredibly stupid. We are less than 30 days before the election, and this Senate seat's important, right? I mean, this is a huge screw up, and Democrats know this Senate seat is important. They have actually spent more money on this Senate race over the last 3 months than I think they ever have on any Senate race at all, right? They spent a record $28 million in the last 3 months, and that should show you how important this race actually is to them, right? They think that this race is pivotal to taking back the Senate in November. And polls have shown it's been very tight race between the two, with Cunningham having a narrow lead in everything, right? He's been leading the polls and has, I think his lead has actually grown as, the Trump administration has been dragging other Senate polls down. But this could change things. While Tom Tillis is sidelined because he has the coronavirus, now Cal Cunningham is essentially doing the same thing. he backed out of a town hall as those cheating allegations surfaced. And, that's just this is just so dumb. For Democrats, they needed 3 seats to pick up the majority in the Senate. And potentially, and so look, the big picture here is that they don't really need North Carolina to do that. And the way the polls are looking is that they could possibly lose North Carolina and still, get back the Senate. Things are looking good in Arizona. In Maine, Susan Collins isn't looking so good. So there's, and in Alaska, Murkowski, I believe that she's underwater in the polls as well. And so North Carolina is not a must-win state for Democrats. But to spend all this money and to potentially lose the state over something so stupid is, it's just, it just kind of shows sometimes Democrats, they find ways to lose elections. And they've found a lot of dumb ways to lose elections throughout the years. But this has definitely got to be pretty high on the top 10. So, my computer going here. Computer going very slow today. I guess it's Wednesday. Hey, it's getting close to the end of the week. I can't really blame my computer for wanting to take a little time off. So I had a friend. I had a conversation with a really good friend the other day. One of my best friends, in fact. He knows I love politics, and of course I'm probably talking politics maybe more than he wants to hear about politics. But he asked me the other day when we were watching my beloved Falcons lose to the Packers, which kind of sucked. Why does any of this even matter, right? How does any of this stuff actually affect me? I mean, does politics actually affect any of us? And for reference, I love this guy. But he is a, getting close to middle-aged white guy. Hopefully he's watching. He's not going to like that. That's right, buddy. But, for a lot of folks, yeah, politics doesn't matter, right? They think, they just, hey, this is a bunch of fighting, a bunch of people yelling at each other. I'd rather not be a part of it. I'd rather not be a part of all that, right? And I can certainly get that sentiment. I can certainly get why it would turn a lot of people off. But I asked him, hey, well, the coronavirus has sucked, right? It didn't have to. I mean, that affects all of us. And the reason why it affects all of us is because we weren't prepared. And so, I put out to my friend when he first said this, I was like, do you know anyone who's gay? You know anyone who's LGBTQ? Because here is exactly how politics affects them. Over the weekend, it was announced that Justices Alito and Thomas have said that they want the Supreme Court to, quote, fix the decision on gay marriage after Amy Coney Barrett is nominated to the Supreme Court. And if you don't believe me, because that sounds crazy, because it does actually sound crazy in 2020, here's the article itself. From Forbes, no less. Again, Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito decried the U.S. Supreme Court's decision allowing same-sex marriage and its cavalier treatment of religion, and a decision Monday declining to hear Kentucky clerk Kim Davis's case. And I don't know if you remember Miss Kim Davis. There's a little picture of her right there, but she refused to issue same-sex marriage licenses in her county. And so one of the things that actually got Amy Coney Barrett at the top of the list for potential Supreme Court nominees is that she has said that she will not be limited by past presidents. She has said that shouldn't determine future decisions, right? And so how this typically works is the Supreme Court decides something, and that kind of becomes established law going forward. And that makes a ton of sense, right? If the Supreme Court was just kind of, okay, it's all based on like advancing rulings, advancing like our understanding of the Constitution, right? And so if they did a ruling and said, okay, we ruled this, we did this in a past ruling, let's just throw that out for this new ruling. Well, then you got to look at that past ruling too, right? I mean, if you're establishing, okay, when the Supreme Court decides things, it establishes them. And so if you establish one thing that cancels out another thing, you have to go look back at that other thing. And so for a long time, I believe the court's entire history, it's been, okay, we're making decisions off past precedents to avoid chaos. Well, Amy Coney Barrett does not believe in that. And so that kind of means that everything is on the table. Gay marriage is on the table. Abortion is on the table. If you're one of those millions of Americans who was celebrating a couple months ago when the Supreme Court decided, hey, you can't fire someone for being gay, that's on the table now. That could be thrown out. And this is the reason why the Supreme Court is so important, is because we are trapped in a crazy spin of partisanship, right? There is 2 senators from every state, okay? And as I've talked about in the past, that gives conservatives more political power. In the past, I believe it is 6 out of the 7 presidential elections, and the presidents nominate the Supreme Court justices. And so they really have a lot of influence on, this stopgap for our democracy, which is the Supreme Court has always kind of been. And they've always been there to balance everything going on in the country. Well, 6 out of the last 7 elections, the Republicans have lost the popular vote, and the popular vote to determine who's going to be the next president, but they have they've lost the election in 2000 and 2016. And that should really go to show you that, their people's voices is really not being heard, and this is showing up on the Supreme Court. And if Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed, that'll turn the court into a 6-3 conservative tilt. And also it's important to remember that the court sets their own agenda, right? Congress votes on what the majority wants. For a long time, there's been a lot of things that Democrats have passed in the House, and they want to bring up in the Senate. They want to argue about it, they want to talk about it, and vote on it. And the majority party in the Senate controls what we vote on or don't vote on. And what that really means is Mitch McConnell votes, or has the deciding voice on what the Congress is going to do. And that's how it's worked for a very, very long time. And there's been a lot of things that even members of Mitch McConnell's own party want, but hey, he is the final decision on whether or not things are going to actually come to the floor or not. Now, the Supreme Court doesn't exactly have that problem, right? The Supreme Court can pick and choose as they please. And so if there is a challenge to abortion law, if they, let's say, for example, they, struck down parts of Roe versus Wade, and someone, challenged it and wanted their day in court, well, the Supreme Court can just say no. We're not going to hear that. We're not going to do anything about that. And with the the crazy partisanship we're having in the country right now, Democrats would have to do something drastic to change the balance in the Senate to where they could actually override the Supreme Court. Forget having, the presidential power, or if they have if Biden wins, takes for the White House, and the Senate's have if there's a sweeping Democratic win and they pick up the majority control, no one is predicting they're going to get 60 seats to actually be able to pass things and amendments and stuff that would actually be able to override the Supreme Court. And so this is the trump card for conservatives. And it has been for a long time, because it gives them lasting, lifetime control that Democrats would have to do some radical things to change. And so far, they're not showing a willingness to do that. And so the next time someone says politics isn't important or doesn't affect them, remember, it's not just about you. It's not just about me. It's about all of us. I think one of the great things in my lifetime that I've seen is that people who are LGBTQ have been able to come out of the closet more or less, right? They've been able to be who they want to be without facing the prospect of losing their job or losing their employment They've been able to, get married, and I'm a very happily married man. I love being married. They've been able to, enjoy all the rights that the rest of us have. They're not looked at as second-class citizens. And, potentially that could change. And there's unfortunately not a whole lot we can all do about it. Oops. So my next last segment here, last part of the show. This is a question I'd like to ask you. I have a question for you, the audience there. And that question is, how do you feel about being a guinea pig? How do you feel about having things tested on you? Right? Could be fun. And another thing I want to mention here is that, let's be honest, right? As we get into the weeds of this, no one likes the rules, right? No one likes red tape. I'm someone who, honestly, maybe I get myself in trouble here, but I kind of, I ask for forgiveness before I ask for permission. It's worked out pretty well for me. I just kind of do things as I've always done. Sometimes it's a lot easier that way. And as a small business owner, yeah, of course, there's a lot of rules and regulations that can be they can be very tricky to navigate. But is faster always better? You can always get things better, get things done faster without regulation. But is that actually better? So early on in the pandemic, there was a push from Republican governors to reduce FDA regulations to get COVID tests on the market, right? I mean, we needed tests very fast.
I expected a decision before today, but, I'm kind of an impatient guy, but, lives are literally at stake.
And he wasn't wrong there. I mean, lives were literally at stake, I mean, this is early on in the pandemic, if you can remember back then. And the idea is we can still stop COVID-19. We can contain this. We can limit this. We can stop it from, wreaking havoc on our population. And so there was a rush. Everyone said the main thing to stopping COVID-19 spread, the main thing here was getting testing done. You look around the world, South Korea was able to limit their outbreaks because they jumped on testing quick. They jumped on masks quick, right? And they were able to really, not see a whole lot of problems with their economy. Now, the problem with rushing those tests through the FDA was that they were kind of shit.
One day, one of these 12-hour shifts in the emergency room in the Bronx, we admitted maybe 20 people we were sure had COVID. There was just no doubt about it. They positively had COVID. And either 19 or 20 of them tested negative. So that the testing's not great, and the false negative rate is high.
I do love that Bill Maher. That's one of my favorite shows. And now, Republicans are trying to mess with the FDA again. This time, the Trump administration is trying to block guidelines to get a vaccine on the market by, oh, you guessed it, November 3rd, Election Day. So the FDA basically put a lot of, was trying to put a lot of strict measures in place to make sure that this vaccine was safe before it was distributed to the public, right? They wanted to put a lot of stuff in there to make sure that you and I, if we took the vaccine, we're going to be okay. And now, for political reasons, they're trying to rush it on through. And if you say, oh, it's not political reasons, then why November? Why are they trying to get done by Election Day? If it wasn't for politics, that wouldn't matter. If they really cared about the health and safety of the American people, they wouldn't be trying to rush it. And so, what they are doing by interfering in this process is actually making it less likely that people will take the vaccine when it actually does come out. I mean, look, I'm not and they've actually accused people of being anti-vaxxer. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I think vaccines are great. I think vaccines are awesome. They've saved countless lives. But by doing this, by interfering with the FDA, by interfering with scientists, they're actually they're making it so people are not going to trust the vaccine. People aren't going to go out and get that. And so it makes the whole thing not only, it exacerbates the whole pandemic in general because, okay, the vaccine, we want everyone to go out and take it and so we can be done with this mess. And people are less likely to do that now because they're interfering with the process. That's the horrible thing they're doing, number one. The second thing is that, they're trying to make the actual vaccine itself less safe. I mean, I was very excited to take the vaccine until I saw someone had a spinal cord injury. I don't know how you get a spinal cord injury from taking a vaccine, but yeah, that made me a little less likely to take it. So again, if Republicans had taken this shit seriously, we would not be where we are at now, unfortunately. Well, that was fun, huh? Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in the news here. There's actually the vice presidential debate is starting soon. And so I may or may not be back with you to live stream that. I'm still trying to figure out live streaming actual events and stuff like that. It's a little more difficult than it looks. I've, my computer here is lagging a little bit that I'd pull it up on. So, we're still learning. We're still doing stuff. But as always, I want to thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And I'm still figuring out a good schedule to actually go live. But, still working on that. But as always, I want to thank you for stopping in. Thanks for checking out Citizen Pete. And I will be back better than ever. Hello. How are y'all doing? So I have decided to do a little live stream of the vice presidential debate. Now, I'm sure you're aware, the Vice President Mike Pence is getting ready to square off against Kamala Harris in this latest presidential debate. And against my better judgment, I've decided to live stream it. So, here, let me get the full screen up there for you. We are, as you see, we're just waiting for the candidates to come out on the stage. And so, unfortunately, the debate is on Fox News. So, we are, unfortunately stuck with their coverage. There's a lot of craziness on Fox News. But we're just waiting for the candidates to come out on the debate stage now. For both the candidates, there's a lot at stake here. For Mike Pence, he has to figure out how to somehow turn the page on all the negative headlines the Trump administration has been facing lately. There's been a lot of issues that they're facing from, Trump testing positive to talking about not letting the virus dominate you. That was not a good soundbite for a lot of people. And for Kamala Harris Harris there. There's a lot at stake as well, but it looks like they're taking the stage here. Let's take a look. So that extra precaution she's talking about there, that's the divider that Pence's folks did not want. Harris's folks, of course, did want, because there's been so many tests on the Republican side. And yeah, that's what she's referring to there. Just FYI. That's a good question. That's no one paying attention to the rules there. That's no one paying attention to the rules there. Yep. Hear you on that. That's bullshit. That's what they're doing. They're fighting the FDA. Again, it's everyone's fault but theirs. So it turns out the audio, I can hear it, but I think you guys can't hear it. So I'm gonna do a little technical check. But yeah, this might be something's not working here. But anyway, we tried it out.